Hello everyone, and welcome back. I'm Natural News, and today we're going to take a fascinating journey into the heart of the Federal Reserve, exploring a book that pulls back the curtain on this powerful institution. The book is Fed Up, an insider's take on why the Federal Reserve is bad for America, by Danielle DiMartino Booth, and it's a gripping account of her 9 years inside the Federal Reserve, offering a rare glimpse into the decision-making processes and the profound impact these decisions have on all of us. Picture this. It's a cold, sleety morning in December 2008. A group of 17 bureaucrats, mostly academics, unelected and virtually invisible to the public, are making their way to the Mariner S. Eccles Federal Reserve Board building in Washington, D.C. These are the members of the Federal Open Market Committee, the decision-making body of the Federal Reserve System. Their task? To vote on whether to take the Fed funds rate, the interest rate at which banks lend money to each other overnight, to the zero bound. This historic decision would ripple throughout the economy, affecting the borrowing costs for businesses and consumers alike. The room is filled with tension as Chairman Ben Bernanke calmly but insistently argues that this is the only way to prop up a faltering Wall Street, mired in the greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression. By the end of the meeting, the vote is unanimous. The FOMC officially adopts a zero interest rate policy, hoping to keep companies afloat, employees on payrolls, and consumer spending. They even agree to pay banks interest on their deposits. Free cash, essentially. But here's the catch. While Wall Street breathes a sigh of relief, the Fed's academic models never address the question of what happens to everyone else. As DiMartino Booth reveals, the Fed's decision would have far-reaching consequences, many of them devastating, for everyday Americans. Rewind to the early 2000s. The Fed, under Chairman Alan Greenspan, had been aggressively lowering interest rates to stimulate the economy after the dot-com bubble burst. This led to a housing boom, with people buying homes they couldn't afford, thanks to subprime mortgages. DiMartino Booth, who was working on Wall Street at the time, saw firsthand the deceptive practices and the looming disaster. She warned readers about the housing bubble, but her concerns fell on deaf ears. By 2006, the housing market was showing signs of strain. DiMartino Booth, now working at the Dallas Fed, was one of the few who recognized the systemic risk building up. She collaborated with economist John V. Duca to publish papers on the rise and fall of subprime mortgages and the risky business of collateralized debt obligations. Despite their warnings, the Fed continued to downplay the risks. When the housing bubble burst in 2008 and triggered a global financial crisis, the Fed's response was to bail out Wall Street. But as DiMartino Booth points out, the consequences for everyday Americans were dire. Pension funds faced massive shortfalls, millennials struggled to find affordable housing, and retirees saw their savings erode due to the Fed's zero-interest rate policy. DiMartino Booth's book reveals a culture of groupthink within the Fed, where dissenting voices are often ignored or dismissed. She recounts her own experiences of being treated with condescension by her colleagues, who were mostly PhD economists with little real-world experience. The Fed's leadership, from Greenspan to Bernanke to Janet Yellen, seemed oblivious to the risks their policies were creating. DiMartino Booth argues that their academic training and reliance on complex models blinded them to the realities of the economy. One of the most intriguing aspects of DiMartino Booth's book is her exploration of the shadow banking system, a network of financial entities that operate outside the traditional banking system. She describes how this system, largely unregulated and poorly understood, played a crucial role in the financial crisis. The collapse of Lehman Brothers and the near collapse of AIG exposed the interconnectedness of the shadow banking system and the systemic risk it posed. DiMartino Booth also delves into the Fed's role in exacerbating income inequality. She argues that the Fed's policies, particularly quantitative easing, have benefited the wealthy at the expense of the middle class and the poor. The Fed's massive bond-buying programs have inflated asset prices, enriching those who own stocks and real estate, while doing little to stimulate job growth or wage increases. She cites the example of Texas, which has outperformed other states in job creation despite being subject to the same Fed policies. DiMartino Booth attributes Texas's success to its business-friendly environment and low tax burden, suggesting that the Fed's focus on monetary policy alone is insufficient to address the nation's economic challenges. In the final part of the book, DiMartino Booth calls for reform of the Federal Reserve. She advocates for a more transparent and accountable Fed, one that is less influenced by Wall Street and more responsive to the needs of Main Street. She suggests limiting the number of academic PhDs at the Fed, bringing in more practitioners, and granting all district bank presidents a permanent vote on the FOMC. DiMartino Booth also calls for the Fed to abandon its dual mandate of maximizing employment and maintaining price stability, arguing that it is unrealistic and counterproductive. Instead, she proposes a singular focus on price stability, leaving the task of job creation to fiscal policy. As we wrap up this episode, it's clear that Fed Up is a powerful critique of the Federal Reserve and its policies. DiMartino Booth's insider perspective offers a compelling argument for reform and a reminder of the profound impact the Fed has on our lives. Whether you agree with her views or not, her book is a must-read for anyone interested in understanding the inner workings of this powerful institution and the challenges it faces in navigating the complex world of modern finance. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a comment. And don't forget to share it with your friends and family. Until next time, I'm Natural News. Stay curious and informed.
This has been a Books Alive video from Natural News on the book Fed Up, an insider's take on why the Federal Reserve is bad for America by Danielle DiMartino Booth. Visit brighteon.com for more fascinating videos like this one, and visit naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage and breaking news on critical stories that keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.